Acton Select Board meeting to order. This open meeting is being conducted remotely consistent with the legislative acts of 2021, Chapter 20, Section 20, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This meeting is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the meeting agenda. See the meeting agenda on the town website for details on how to participate remotely. This meeting will feature some public comment. Please note that this meeting will be rebroadcast, may be rebroadcast, and it may be published. Please note that this meeting may be recorded and it says that it may be published or rebroadcast. All participation within this meeting will be visible to others. Finally, each vote taken during the meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Okay, good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all. We'll start with resident concerns. Justin, could you call on people with their hands raised, please?
Sure can. We have a call-in user to start.
Hi, this is Kara. Can you hear me?
Yes.
From West Acton. Okay, I have a comment, two comments. One is about the CPA priorities. I had been told that the chair wouldn't take comment if you weren't making decisions, but then you all made all kinds of decisions, like this is this priority, that was that priority. And so we never got a chance to weigh in on how we wanted you to make decisions because they were actual decisions. Now, the second comment is relative to growth. I feel like justice includes affordability and taxes too. And growth in population costs more than purchasing the land in most cases. And I feel like the town would do better in terms of environmental justice and various other justice to do better planning. For example, a huge increase because you haven't planned is fine for people with deep pockets. The $100 a month increase, for example, from the last the last big increase. But for people that are regular working people, it's very difficult to afford these large increases with the do-nothing scenario and letting Acton continue to be one of the highest, fastest growing towns. So I feel like more needs to be done in that regard. And I'm really glad for the FinCom is now actually looking at population growth and how that is correlated to the level of services and the number of FTEs and the taxes. So I applaud the FinCom for doing that, and Adam Nolby, I'll give him a special call out because I think that he's led the way to start using the numbers that I think should be tracked. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sarah Karp.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Sarah Karp, and I live in North Acton. And I'm part of a group of students actually at AB called Resource Force. We're a group, we're dedicated to fighting climate action at a local level. And currently we're looking at ways to reduce the carbon footprint of Acton's residential sector. And so we have a really cool opportunity coming up to do this with the upcoming renewal of the Acton Power Choice energy contract. And by changing the default level of renewable energy to 100%, we can streamline the process of providing residents with 100% green energy while providing the option to still opt down for those that need the most economic option. And these changes will be voted on by the town manager. So we would really appreciate the opportunity to be put on the agenda for a select board meeting, if possible, to kind of present these proposed changes to the contract in more depth and ask for your support. And this particularly matters to me because changing this energy source is really the most impactful way for us as a town right now to fight climate change. And the outcome of this climate emergency is going to determine my future. It's going to determine my classmates' future and really my entire generation's future. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Sarah, you can contact me, David Martin at actonma.gov, David Martin, all one word, about getting on the agenda. Note that we probably will be discussing this in very late spring or early summer, where we discuss how to renew the contract. Thank you.
Next up is Mark Benton.
Good evening, select board members. I wrote to you this morning with regard to a sewer issue that I'm experiencing at my home at 70 Maple Street. In the interests of time, I'll just simply say we tried conventional methods to try to resolve what we believed was a blockage. Those weren't successful. We had to resort to excavating a section of our driveway. And what we found was the outlet from the home, but we could not find the remainder of the sewer line tying into the town sewer. We found the remnants of a crushed cesspool, but within a 4-foot radius of the outlet, we did not find the rest of the presumably PVC line going to the town sewer. And so I requested documentation from the city, and I do note that many of these documents are unsigned, and I believe the plans to be incomplete or inaccurate. And so I appear before you today virtually to request the city's assistance. We now have basically an open sewer at our home and no clear path forward to resolving this matter. And so I would ask for the city's assistance to help us in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, the town manager will look into this further and we'll get back to you.
Great. Do you have a time frame, David, that you think the town manager and the committee might be able to address this?
No, it won't be the board itself, and I don't have a time frame. I know that the town manager already started to look into it.
Thank you very much.
We have one more person, but their Zoom is not up to date, so I can allow them to talk by promoting them.
That'll be okay, Justin. Thank you.
Okay, so it's Song Leave, it says, and I'm promoting them now.
Hi, I'm sorry about that. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, I'm Song Leave. I'm also a member of the Resource Force and a student at AB. I'm just going to give a little bit more information as to why the proposal Sarah outlined a little while ago is by far the best thing that we as a town can do right now to mitigate climate change. Acton's shown that we want to be a leader in climate action by establishing a climate emergency in September of 2020. By making 100% renewable clean energy the default in Acton, we'll not only be able to mitigate the climate change in our town, but also influence climate action on a bigger scope with other towns. After all, we were influenced to propose these changes because after talking to other towns such as Lowell, Newton, and Lexington that have higher renewable electricity defaults compared to Acton, we know that these changes have a huge impact and that we think Acton can match the impact of these other communities. These impacts will also increase demand for renewable energy across the world, which in turn forces an increase in supply. And with more renewable energy on the market, we'll be one step closer to net zero emissions, not just locally, but nationally and globally as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all the people that have their hands up.
Thank you. Well, okay, we'll move on. The only update from me today is that in our first meeting in March, which will be March 7th, exactly a month from today, we'll have a forum where we can take input from members of the public on whether we should raise the Community Preservation Act surcharge or not. This Community Preservation Act surcharge is used for open space, historic preservation, housing, and I'm forgetting one, recreation. And those so they're used for a lot of projects in town. So we'll give time for everybody to give input pro or con a month from tonight. So if you're interested in that, please come. Mr. Manager.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to mention a few things. First, the Municipal Monthly was published at the end of last week, so hopefully everyone has a chance to check that out to see what departments are reporting as upcoming news and events. Tracking the COVID numbers locally, they're closely following the trend that we're seeing statewide, or at least it's been reported statewide, that numbers have receded back down to sort of mid-December levels, which is very encouraging. The Board of Health meets next in 2 weeks, I believe, and they'll be continuing to discuss any measures the community takes in regards to the COVID response. Pleased to announce that we'll be receiving a grant to install a DC fast charger. We're planning to install this at the fields, in the parking lot for the fields at the corner of 2A and 27. The announcement just came out Friday, so we're still learning more details, but we did receive funding, which we're very excited about. Nice work by Andrea and others to put that together. I also wanted to mention that I've recently been elected by my peers to the board of the Mass Managers Association. As part of that role, I'm now also part of the board of directors for the larger MMA organization, and will be sworn in tomorrow as a member of the Local Government Advisory Commission. This is an exciting opportunity for me, and I wanted to share that with the board. As part of this work on the state commission, I'll be meeting with the administration, the Baker-Field administration, several times a year. And it's just an exciting opportunity to work with me and my colleagues on local issues. Speaking of local issues, at the last meeting or two, there was several questions about sewers and sort of inflow and infiltration and a lot of different things that were discussed by the sewer commissioners. And I think I've been working with the staff, and I mentioned to the chair, and he supports the idea of holding a sort of a workshop for sewer commissioners. The select board members, as you know, are also sewer commissioners, and it's a lot of details and background that we want to share with the board. This will be an opportunity to talk about sort of the history of sewers, the current time for the sewer, and so answer some of the questions that have been raised recently about capacity, maintenance of the existing system, how it's aging after 20 years, the big project that was approved by town meeting to rehab the treatment plant and things of that nature. Also, something that we're working on at the staff level, and the chair supports bringing forward, is a public forum type conversation about the MBTA legislation. This was a topic on the agenda last meeting, and it was just to give an update on where we are internally in reviewing that legislation and how it impacts us. And one of the steps that was outlined was to have a public conversation, solicit input from the community about questions, concerns, and then from that, the select board would have an opportunity to then submit comments to the state before the deadline later this year. So we're looking at March for that meeting. And finally, also in March, per the town charter, the select board transmit the municipal operating budget to the finance committee 60 days before town meeting. And that date is in mid-March. So the board could consider voting to take that formal action at its first March meeting or anytime before that. But that's sort of the deadline to get that step accomplished per the charter. So I just wanted to make sure that if there's any questions, concerns, or things that you'd like me to do to help finalize the budget recommendation, please let me know.
Thank you, John. My thinking is to put that budget vote, the vote to transfer give the budget to FinCom at our last meeting this month on the 28th, which is after the next ALG meeting. That could be changed if circumstances change. Would any member like to make a member minute? Jim, please.
So we passed our policy about discouraging fossil fuel use, and I just wanted to update the board that I'm in touch with the chairs of the ZBA and the planning board and the DRB about how to carry the information in that policy forward to their boards. And apologies to anyone on those boards who got emails from me about this, because I apparently stumbled across a bug in the way that our mail system mangles and protects links. So a lot of people couldn't open the policy, but that's been fixed. So they now have access to it. That's it.
Thank you. Fran.
Mute. Hi, all. I just wanted to read a little bit of some notes that I have from the last EDC meeting. They've been busily brainstorming about our upcoming 250th celebration of April 19th. And they feel like the organization for this event should start fairly soon, if not now. They see this as a huge opportunity to engage our community in the educational aspect of this historic time in our local history through information, through architecture, farming, and other historic aspects of Acton, but also to bring tourists to Acton, perhaps through coordinating this event with our other historic neighboring towns. I don't think I have to list them. They are also hoping that community members and town committee members will step up to form a committee to lead the effort. And I also think this is a nice timeline goal to get Asa Parlin looking spiffy. So that's my member minute.
Great. Thank you. Dean.
Thank you. As we'll deal with in the consent agenda, work is progressing along with setting up a committee to look at the public works facility. And hopefully, if everything gets approved tonight, the first act will probably be like to set up a tour of the existing facilities with the new committee members. And I'll defer to the town manager and the public works director for when that might happen. But that work is well underway at this point. That's it.
Great. Thank you. And Imogen, did you have anything?
Nothing on my end. Just wanted to thank Sarah and Song for speaking about their efforts and for encouraging us to be more proactive with all our work around bringing Acton to a more green future. And so, yeah, I just wanted to say thanks. And, you know, Jim, also great news about the legislation. So just wanted to thank our youth speakers and also just applaud all the efforts that even the town manager mentioned about Acton moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I'll get to our first of several public hearings tonight. Notice is hereby given under Chapter 138, Section 12 of the General Laws that the Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on February 7th, 2022 at 7:35 p.m., continued from January 10th, 2022 in the Francis Faulkner Hearing Room, 204 Acton Town Hall, remotely by video conference and call-in, on the application of Holy Grail for a change in managers from Amy Hurley to Anthony Mascarin for an all-alcohol license as a common vittler at 166 Great Road, Acton. From a computer, please click on the link to join the public meeting, actonmod.meeting/BOS, or from a telephone dial 646-876-9923 and enter webinar ID 503-918-785. Telephone users may dial *9 to request to speak after joining the meeting. Computer and app users may use the raise hand feature to request to speak. So as I said in the notice, this was continued from last time. I don't see Holy Grail on as an attendee. I know that there is some issues being discussed between the town and Holy Grail, and I don't know the state of those, but we're actually not in really a position to consider this without Holy Grail being here or having them come to an understanding with the town. So we could continue with this again, or we could deny this for now and wait for Holy Grail to get back to us. John, I don't know if you had a recommendation on this.
Those would be my recommended options for the board to consider. We could postpone it again to a date certain 6 weeks out, or deny it now and ask them to reapply.
I would suggest that we deny it for now rather than take up meeting after meeting, continuing it, and then they can come back when they're ready. So I would take a motion to deny this transfer of manager.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
So Dean moved and Himija seconded. I'll leave that motion open while I allow anybody in the audience to make a comment. I don't see anybody in the audience. John?
I would suggest that the board also close the public hearing at this point.
Yes, I should have done that first. Thank you. Is that what you were going to say, Jim, or you were going to say?
Yes, that's what I was going to
So
say.
I'll leave the other motion on the table, but first I'll take a motion to close the public hearing, which after just double checking now that any members of the board have any comments. Jim.
Just want to say, however this works out, I should confess that I really like the Holy Grail. I like that they have a Monty Python theme, which brings me a smile every time I go by there. And, but I'm not still, you got to do what you got to do.
Yes, and these issues have come up in the past with other businesses, and the town works very closely to try to resolve them, and work with the business owner to get these resolved in any way we can. So I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
So Jim moves and Dean seconds. Jim, would you call the roll, please?
I'd be happy to. Himija Nagaredi,
Aye.
Brian Arsenault,
Aye.
Dean Charter,
Aye.
David Martin,
Aye.
Jim Snyder Grant says aye. The hearing is closed.
So that's unanimous. And now I'll return to the motion on the table to deny the transfer of manager for Holy Grail. Jim, would you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. Himija Nagaredi,
Aye.
Brian Arsenault,
Aye.
Dean Charter,
Aye.
David Martin,
Aye.
Jim Snyder Grant also says aye. That's unanimous.
Thank you. We'll now move forward with item 4 on our agenda, and I'll read the notice. Under MGL 140, Section 58, the Acton Select Board will hold a public hearing on February 7th, 7:40, remotely by video conference, and call in for a Class 2 auto dealer's license transfer from Wheeler Dealer Inc. to Atlantis Auto Plaza Inc., located at 63 Powdermill Road. Login instructions for computers can be found here. From a computer, please click on the link to join the meeting, actonma.gov/meeting/BOS, or from a telephone dial 646-876-9923 and enter the webinar ID 503-918-785. Telephone users may dial *9 to request to speak. After joining the meeting, computer and app users may use the raise hand feature to speak. John, is there someone in the audience to speak to this?
Yes, I believe so. Their hand is raised, I believe.
Okay, it says Nairi. I'm gonna give them permission to speak.
Thank you.
Amy?
Yes, you're a little quiet, but we can hear you. Can you identify
Good evening.
yourself?
My name is Nairi Danielian. I'm representing Atlantis Auto Plaza Inc.
Okay. And can you just give us a little summary about what's happening here?
Well, this is a transfer from a dealership called Wheeler Dealer, located at 63 Powdermill Road in Acton. And it's going to be renamed Atlantis Auto Plaza. And it's going to be under new management. And I'm the representative of the new company, which is the Atlantis Auto Plaza aforementioned. We're looking to keep the same amount of vehicles, which is, I believe, is 79 or 78. We have the members of our company have had licenses, held licenses in Hyannis, Yarmouth, Lawrence, Framingham before, and we've never had a problem with obtaining or keeping up with the regulations.
Okay, thank you. Questions from members of the board? Or comments? Questions from members or comments from members of the public? Just wait a couple more seconds and see if anybody raises their hand. Okay, seeing none and seeing that we have no questions from the board, I would take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Oh, sure, I'll second.
So Dean moves and Jim seconds. Jim, would you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. I'm closing the hearing. Imogen Nagaretti. Brian Arsenault.
I was busy looking up something. I don't know that this really matters, but it's being changed to Atlantis and not Atlantic.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It says Atlantic on the, so that it's neither here nor there, right?
Okay. That's important to note, and we'll take that up right after we close the public hearing.
Yeah.
Fran, would you like to vote in favor or against closing the public hearing?
I'm in favor of closing.
Okay. Dean.
Aye.
David Martin.
Aye.
Jim Snyder Grant also votes aye. The hearing is closed.
Also, just so everybody knows what and heard what Fran said, it's not Atlantic Auto Plaza, it's Atlantis Auto Plaza. Any other comments from the board before we take a motion on approving the transfer of the Class 2 auto dealer license? Okay.
Just to thank you for taking up this work. I'm glad that dealership is getting revived.
Great. So I would take a motion to transfer the Class 2 auto dealer license from Wheeler Dealer Inc. to Atlantis Auto Plaza Inc.
So moved.
Second.
So Jim moves and Fran seconds. Jim, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. On granting the transfer of ownership, Imogen Nagaretti.
Aye.
Brian Arsenault.
Aye.
Dean Charter.
Aye.
David Martin.
Aye.
Jim Snyder Grant also says aye. We're unanimous.
Okay, and then our final public hearing of the evening. Just make sure. Oops, I think I might have closed the wrong one here. Give me 1 second, please. Okay, I will read the notice under MGL 140, Section 58. The Acton Select Board will hold a public hearing on February 7th, 2022 at 7:45 p.m. remotely by video conference and call-in for a Class 1 auto dealer license transfer from Village Subaru to McGovern Subaru of Acton, located at 61 Powdermill Road. Login instructions for computers can be found here. From a computer, please click on the link to join the public meeting, actonma.gov /meeting/BOS, or from a telephone, dial 646-876-9923 and enter the webinar ID 503-918-785. Telephone users may dial *9 to request to speak after joining the meeting. Computer and app users may use the raise hand feature to speak. So I believe that this is a Class 1 auto dealer license, even though the notice says it's a Class 2 auto dealer license. John, is anyone here to speak to this?
Yes, an attendee has their hand raised. Mark Walker.
Okay, allow them to speak.
Hi, folks. My name is Mark Walker from McGovern Automotive Group. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi. Can you tell us, please, what's being requested here?
Sure. We've purchased the entity that was Village Subaru, and we are McGovern Automotive Group. We own 12 other dealerships in the state of Massachusetts. And this is our most recent acquisition, so it was a stock sale. And so we're just requesting a name change of the dealership.
Okay, and are you the CEO or president of McGovern Subaru, or what's your relationship to the business?
I'm an officer in the company. Unfortunately, Matt McGovern had a conflict tonight, so he couldn't make it. But yeah, I'm an officer of the company.
Okay, and is there a change in general use being requested? Number of cars, any other change in use on the property? Okay.
No, sir.
Thank you. Any questions or comments by members of the board? Seeing none, I'll ask if there's any questions or comments from members of the public. Again, seeing none, I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Jim moves and
Second.
And Dean seconds. Jim, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. On the question of closing the hearing, Imogen Nagareti.
Aye.
Brian Arsenault.
Aye.
Dean Charter.
Aye.
David Martin.
Aye.
And Jim Snyder Grant says aye. It's unanimous to close.
Great. And unless there's anything else someone wants to say, I would take a motion to transfer the Class 1 auto dealer license from Village Subaru to McGovern Subaru at 61 Powdermill Road. Anyone want to make that motion?
So moved.
Okay, Fran moves and
Second.
Dean seconds. Jim, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Imogen Nagareti.
Aye.
Brian Arsenault.
Aye.
Dean Charter.
Aye.
David Martin.
Aye.
And Jim Snyder Grant says aye. So we have unanimously accepted the transfer of the license.
Great. Super. Thank you. We're on to item 6 in our agenda. I don't know what we're going to do if this meeting gets over before 11 o'clock, but
Celebrate.
we can just hang out and discuss something. Anyway, John, I believe there that Tom Gillespie from the Dog Park Committee is here to present.
Yes, if we could promote Tom to panelists to allow him to share his screen. The chair, Tom Gillespie, has a presentation to update the board on the project and ask what's being requested of the board tonight.
Should be good.
Hello, Tom. You're still muted, though.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to bring you up to date on a few happenings with the dog park. So I will go ahead and share my screen. And these materials that we'll go over tonight briefly are all in the packet, but be happy to, drill into any of them or answer any questions. So share screen. All right. Everyone's seeing the screen okay?
Yes, thank you.
Great. So this is our presentation this evening. Again, thank you for this opportunity. We're here because we have some really good news. We are ready to apply for a Stanton design grant for the Acton Community Dog Park. We'll have some details on that, and there's some responsibilities for our town manager associated with that we wanted to just make you aware of and give you a chance to take a look at. So our goal tonight is that you would confirm that the town should go forward with this application. And I will briefly review the materials that we have in this grant application. These are all fairly prescribed by the Stanton design grant process. We saw lots of examples for other nearby towns and their applications, and I think we're all in good shape and in good company with this. I've invited tonight our landscape designer, Dennis Dale, who will speak to the preliminary design that we're very excited to share with you tonight. Dennis has done an absolutely amazing job for us at actually no cost at this point, both on the preliminary design and also the estimate of probable construction costs, which is one of my new favorite phrases at this point. I will highlight the fact that this design is preliminary. This is the way Stanton design grants work. You have to have what they call a preliminary design, and it has to be fairly detailed to show them that you have figured out what the park might be. And so it looks an awful lot like a final design, but it is meant to be a preliminary design. We have not gone through public comment on this. We have not done the, other thinking of possible things that we want in the design, etc. All of that will happen, of course, once we get the money for the design, should we get the money from the Stanton Foundation for the complete design. So wanted to make that very clear to folks that we had to do this preliminary design. It looks pretty complete, but don't worry, we have plenty of design work ahead of us. And then last thing I have is a quick update on some of the septic planning with the Acton Housing Authority project, and also some work on what some folks are calling the Main Street campus master design between the dog park, the park in the middle, the senior park, and then the Acton Housing project itself. So before I jump over to the design itself, any questions that people have? All right, so if we could bring Dennis Dale in as a speaker.
He's being promoted right now.
Thank you.
Hello, Dennis.
Hello.
Hi, Dennis. Again, thank you for all of your work, and we wondered if you might briefly highlight, this design and sort of some of the key elements. Pardon me. And then, there's a lot here. I don't think we want to go into too much detailed stuff, but certainly then any questions that people have associated with it. And I can make this, larger or smaller or move around, etc. But Dennis, if you could start us off, please.
Yeah, good evening. It's been a lot of fun to be able to work with the Acton Dog Park Committee on this particular piece of property. Our office had helped out a couple of years ago looking at these three pieces of property. That includes the senior housing site, the middle site, which is the future site of the Acton Senior Park, and then the dog park, which is over here to the west. We have been working closely with the Acton Housing Authority regarding the site and the coordination with the possible leaching field that is situated underneath part of the central part of the park. One of the things that we have looked at closely was that organizing the plan so that the work being done by the housing authority and the leaching field can dovetail neatly with the dog park in many ways. One, just the physical nature of having that utility underneath the dog park, which is great. The other is that the dog park can be a facility for the senior housing and help to unify these three different parcels of land together as part of a larger park. And the third really is about providing a dog park that similar to the ones that we looked at in Billerica, in Woburn, as well as in Burlington, all of which are Stanton grant parks. The Stanton grant has a wonderful website that identifies how to create a really great dog park. And one of the things that they really bring to the fore is the relationship of a dog park to the park being for people also. So there's one of the things that we looked at closely and made sure we could do is that it's completely accessible, handicap accessible throughout the park. You'll see coming off of Main Street, there's a little parking lot there for 14 cars. And from that point there to the west is a smaller enclosed area for puppies or smaller dogs. It's about 5,000 square feet or so. And then the central part of the park, which has two entrances, which is one of Stanton Grant's kind of suggestions or almost requirements, is an area for off-leash dog socialization, really, which also, I have a small dog, and I have met so many people through my small dog at a dog park that it's just a lot of fun. It makes for a great kind of social place to go meet people and have a lot of fun. The park is essentially designed for both dogs and people, so that people can enjoy the park. There's a shade structure proposed in the middle, and there is also, you'll see a kind of a walkway that travels down to the off-site wetland area, and you'll see the bands of setbacks from the wetland edge, which the park takes a little bit of its shape from, maintaining its distance from the wetland area. But at the same time, we've proposed a kind of nature walk that brings you down through the woodland area and then back up to the park. And hopefully it will tie into the senior park area. It's a great addition to, I love the concept of the Main Street campus. And when I think about, our office did some work just across Route 2 at the Hosmer House, and bringing that site up to the 17th century, 18th century. It will be wonderful to have this kind of connection. Some of the entry features that we see at the dog park hopefully will be some of the things that you might see in front of the Hosmer House, the low stone walls and planting along that edge. So we're excited to see the project move forward. We believe that this preliminary plan is a great start. It's by no means the final design. There's plenty of room for tweaking and moving things around and making sure it's just right. And plenty of coordination with the Acton Housing Authority too, in terms of some of the grading and drainage aspects. We have taken this far enough that we believe everything works, but we are open to suggestions as the project moves forward, and as we get our money from the Stanton grant.
Thank you, Dennis. Any questions? I'll leave it here on the design for you folks, and we're always happy to answer questions, after this, as well as you get more of a chance to study it, etc.
So, and then Tom, after this, the only thing remaining is what you're asking of us today. Is that right?
Yes, essentially this letter of assurance.
Right. Okay. We'll come back to that. Questions or comments by members of the board? Jim.
It's really exciting to see a preliminary design, and I appreciate your description of it as it's preliminary. We haven't actually gone through the design process yet, but it's great to be able to visualize it. One question I had was whether whether Dennis Dale himself or his office or where in this process do we involve experts in canine behavior and canine psychology to help us understand what needs to be in a dog park?
I think that's part of our design process once we have some source of funds to pay such people, I think. So we also have a tremendous amount of materials gathered by the committee over the years, and it's been pretty much parked in a Google Drive, waiting for this moment, and we will be able to tap into that resource as well.
Thanks.
Dean, please.
Yeah, speaking as the Select Board's liaison, the Dog Park Committee, we got a couple of thank yous to go out. One is to the committee itself, because they put in a huge amount of work for like 4 years on this. So it's great to see that it's been advanced this far. I've attended most of their meetings recently, and they're really very focused folks, and a lot of people have a lot of knowledge of animal behavior right there on the board. So I think that's very helpful. And most importantly, I want to thank Dennis Dale for the great work that he's done, pro bono. And, this has really kept this thing going, moving ahead. And I really want to thank him and his team for the great job they've done. The only other item that I've got is I'm also liaison to the Council on Aging. They're quite interested in the senior park. So just a reassurance that I'll be kind of a bridge continuing between these two entities. And certainly the senior park is going to get done. We just need to get this first piece done, and then we'll move on to the senior park after that. Thank you.
Thank you. Fran or Himija? Fran?
Yeah, I can jump in. I had sorry, do you want to go, Fran?
No, go ahead, Himija.
Okay, I'll be very quick. So I just was wondering a little bit more about the Stanton grant. I'm not too familiar with it, so I was wondering if you could elaborate more on whether this is a grant that's just for dog parks or other recreational things, and how much will that cover, any other funding sources. Thank you as well for sending us the detailed budget of expected expenses. That was really helpful.
Sure, you're welcome. So the Stanton grants, the ones that we're going after are only for dog parks, and right now they're only dog parks in Massachusetts. As a foundation, they do a lot of other things, but relevant to us here is design grants and then construction grants. Design grants are essentially non-competitive. They do a fixed number per year. We think we're in good shape. It's early in the year, etc., but we shall see. That will cover. The design grant can be up to 10% of the construction budget, and hence the need for the estimated construction budget, which comes in, over the 250 maximum for Stanton construction grants. So if you think of the construction grant as a max of 250, 10% awarded for design, you come up with a figure of $25K. Possible award for this design grant. We think that will be quite a sufficient amount of money to accomplish the design, especially where we are already. And then they make it clear that then if there's monies left over, you just apply that to the construction. And so, parks have been through that before. So again, the total project in terms of Stanton funding would be $250. Remember, there's a 10% municipal match, which was allocated in this year's budget. And then we've done a fair bit of fundraising as well. So we think any sort of a gap that we end up with between the $250 from the construction grant and the budgeted amount, we'll be able to meet and close, potentially, hopefully even without CPC funds, etc.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fran.
It's so exciting to see that. I know it's a preliminary design, but it's great to see it. And I too was curious about the, the landscaping and design for the senior park, and if it would just meld nicely with the dog park. So it's going to be so nice to have this parcel developed like this.
Yes.
It's
I
a
agree.
long time coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Fran.
Yeah, I also love this design. It did a nice job fitting the dog park section in here. I love the walkway around the edge for people who are interested in seeing the dogs, or maybe walk your dog around the edge. You know, so that all looks great. Tom, could you tell me how much space that main section of the dog park is? The trapezoid right in the center. I just trying to gauge the areas.
Sure. So this trapezoid, the charcoal gray is, you know, basically asphalt walkway sort of thing. Probably not concrete, right, Dennis? But probably asphalt based.
Correct.
Yeah. And so the area, the one thing to focus on is, so you can see the dotted lines with the dots. That's the fence for the all dog area. And so the total area, when you look around that fence for the all dog area, is 12,260 square feet.
Okay, great.
So it's a good size. You know, I think it's going to be a fine size.
Okay, yeah, this looks really good. And then, Tom, if you could tell us what you want tonight, and then I'm going to take comments from the public before we vote on that.
Okay, will do. All right, so I'm going to start with this checklist because this is virtually a summary of everything that goes in the assurance letter, which I will show you next. This is a form on their design application page, and it basically says that, you know, we are assuring Stanton, it will be signed by the town manager, of all of these things. And I won't drill into any of these unless you have specific questions. And, you know, Mr. Town Manager, you know, if you have any questions on these, we can drill into them a little bit offline as well.
Okay, thank you. So this is, I would call it, a letter of intent, or, you know, a formal saying that, Acton intends to move forward with the dog park. And we would be voting tonight on authorizing the town manager to sign this as part of the application to Stanton.
Yes, that's correct.
But before we get there, I'm going to allow people to make comments or ask questions. Justin, if you could call on people with their hands raised, please.
Absolutely. We have a call-in user.
Hi, it's Tara from West Acton. I want to say that I'm also very excited by this. And I want to make sure that people remember that this would have been a factory-sized daycare if it hadn't been for the Acton Select Board asking Town Council for the how to deny memo, and hung tough to protect our mom and pop daycare. So thank you to the Select Boards for doing that. Thanks to Dennis for the pro bono work, and of course all the pro bono work done by the committee. My concerns are around design, and I'll hold my detailed comments until the public forums, because I suspect you'll vote yes on this tonight, and I hope you do, and I expect that they'll give the grant. So, but my concerns are on taste, and want to weigh in on specific design attributes relative to keeping the complex looking like a theme park. I was a little disappointed with how some of the Hosmer stuff hinted out, and I'll provide those details later, but I don't want that corner of Acton to look like a theme park, and I certainly don't want it to be seen from Route 2. So thank you, everybody, for doing this, and thank you for having the animals' concerns and the people's concerns, and it seems just such a lovely project. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Next is Kathy Fochman.
Good evening. This is Kathy Fochman, Wright Terrace in West Acton. I just want to enthusiastically support the Stanton Foundation grant. I just want to inform the board that, as I've said in the past, I'm heading up a Friends Committee. We've been working together with the Acton Community Dog Park Committee to raise funds and also to engage the community in being a participant in formulating the design and wants for this park. I just want to make people aware that the Friends are going to be reaching out to the community to ask for your participation and also to help us fundraise to cover any additional costs that will not be covered by the Stanton grant. They cover 90% of the hard costs. We may want to invest in other things. And I'm sure the community would like to weigh in on how this park fits in with our community, and just want to put it out there that I will be involved and have been working closely with the dog park committee. So thank you for considering this.
Thank you.
Next up is Claire Siska.
Hi, Claire Siska, 14 Stowe Street. I'm a member of the Dog Park Committee. I just wanted to point out two things that I thought were not emphasized enough. I really want to applaud Dennis. He worked, and also the AHA. They made themselves available, and Hancock Associates to work with Dennis and with us. You can't really, we didn't get into a lot of detail about it, but he was really clever in being able to work in situation, to be able to work with the slope that we were so afraid we were going to have to deal with the septic system. And because everybody's worked together, Dennis utilized a slope, and he put in a seat wall that you could sit on, into the small dog area. So I thought he's really clever solutions, and really a great job of people, working together on that. And also he was able to, we have some checking we have to do legally and from an engineering standpoint, but I never imagined that we were going to be able to get parking right close to the park for the handicapped community, and he was able to do that. So I've been really impressed, and I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that all of those questions had been addressed in this, at least in this preliminary design, and it's why he does what he does, because I couldn't see it.
Thank you.
And looks like we have Jeff Burgart.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Jeff Burgart, 26 Alcott Street in Acton. I'm a member of the Council on Aging, and the Council on Aging had voted unanimously to put a senior park in that middle parcel, and asked me to run point for a while the Acton Housing Authority and Dog Park are working on their detailed plans. And I want to express my thanks for the incredible cooperation that we've received to make this a very beautiful campus with a lot of green, and integrating the designs from the AHA, putting a walkway from their back patio so they can get into the park, and working with Dennis eventually to make it possible for seniors to walk around and view dogs if they wish, and have the dogs isolated enough from them that they won't cause any problems. And this is just going to be a fabulous process, and I'm looking forward especially to the next phase as it relates to us, which is the overview of how those three parcels will work together at a very high level. And then we hope to drill down on the senior park. And I understand, I want to thank the select board for putting aside money so that we can go into that process in the next month or two, showing overall how those three parcels will work together, and then drill down a little bit so that we can have a conceptual drawing for when it's time for public comment on the senior park. Thank you again.
Thank you. So I don't see any more people who'd like to comment. So now we can consider this. So this is a letter of support from the town to the Stanton Foundation. So I would take a motion to authorize the town manager to sign this letter of assurance for the dog park to Stanton.
So moved.
Dean moves. And
Second.
Fran seconds. Any final discussion from the board before we vote? Okay,
just
go ahead, Jim.
Sorry, just a short note. So the size of the larger, the main park is a little bit more than 1/4 of an acre. My math says 2/7, but whatever, around there. Ideal Dog Park, at least what it looks like online, is larger, 1/2 acre, 1 acre. So I'm just hoping that as the conversations continue, as we develop things more, that we are. Oh, and this is a question for Tom, I guess. Are we open to the possibility of having a conversation about the parking being in the senior park, adjacent to the dog park, available for both purposes, which might free up some land to expand the main part of the dog park?
Certainly. I also think that the slopes involved allow certain things and don't allow others. And so I think there's some additional discussions there as well. So we felt that this was a good enough size, a reasonable size, if we can squeeze some more out through when we have money to pay Dennis or whomever to do the work to consider such things, we would.
Thank you.
I would say, Jim, and I don't know the actual size, but there's a dog park, and Tom can correct me if I'm wrong, in Maynard, which is actually not too big, but it's a cute little dog park, and you could go see it. It's not very far away. So, I mean, it's on the kind of the Sudbury-ish side of Maynard, but it seems to serve the purpose pretty well. I do agree that we probably need to figure out consolidated parking for both parks. We probably don't want 2 different parking areas, so we will probably have to figure that out. Any other comments from the board before we vote? Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Jim, would you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. On the motion of supporting this letter, Imogen Nagaré.
Aye.
Fran Arsenal.
Aye.
Dean Charter.
Aye.
David Martin.
Aye.
Jim Snydergrant also says aye. We're unanimous in supporting this letter.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Dennis and Tom.
And if you will indulge me in just one more slide in terms of some updates.
Sure, please go ahead.
So as Claire was mentioning, special thanks to Kelly and the AHA project team for a lot of work figuring out that led to the design. We anticipate when we get the final design needing to go back to the Conservation Commission for wetland setback, but I think we're going to be able to do that, and some of the preliminary conversations have gone on. And then when it comes to the Main Street campus, folks have mentioned the holistic view, etc. I wanted to mention that Steve Trimble has agreed to essentially lead the project, foster it, whatever right term there. He is a recreation commissioner and also a volunteer, and so having Steve available to keep that all moving forward is a real gift as well. And once again, we thank you. Look forward to speaking to you sometime in the future.
Thank you so much.
All right, cheers, bye.
Okay, we'll move on to item 7 about a home rule petition proposed by the AHA. John, are we expecting Kelly Cronin to speak?
Yes, the director, Kelly Cronin from the Housing Authority, is going to be here to speak to this, and I can do an intro while that's being sorted out. And Tom, if you could unshare your screen.
Oh yeah, sure.
So the Housing Authority is starting their process to work towards building this new project, and they are going to move forward with the procurement, hopefully, as quickly as they can. And this ask of the board is related to that. Kelly.
Hi, John. Could we, Jeff Sachs is here as well, and he's our development counsel. Just if we could have him join also in case there are complicated questions I can't answer.
Promoted.
So the Acton Housing Authority, because we're a public entity, has different procurement rules than other housing developers. And this language that we've proposed is the same language that was used recently by the Brookline Housing Authority to develop affordable housing in their town, and has been used by about 5 other local communities. Chelmsford, Boston, Taunton, Chelsea, and Somerville have also gotten home rule petitions. And basically the issue is that housing authorities have to do filed sub-bids, and this is Jeff from who's our development attorney, have to do filed sub-bids, which other housing developers do not, and that increases the price and does not necessarily give you a cohesive development team. Usually a general contractor will come in with all their subs already selected with the prices worked out between them, and then you don't have a lot of change orders, etc. All of the procurement rules related to prevailing wage, so that people still get the living wages, MWBE, veterans preferences, that all remains. It's just the filed sub bids that we're asking permission to get the legislature to exempt us from. And Jeff, do you want to add anything to that?
I think you've covered it pretty well, Kelly. The only thing I'd add is that many housing authorities have done this since the mid-90s. It really facilitates the type of financing that we're doing. The rest of the AHA's portfolio was built with a different financing mechanism that really isn't around anymore. We're going to be using low-income housing tax credits. We're going to have a private investor who's going to help us by investing in our project. All these things make it harder to build a project like this if you're doing a filed sub-bid project, and that's why the legislature has seen fit to give these types of home rule petitions to many other housing authority projects.
Thank you. I have 2 quick questions before I open it up. Is this would this apply to larger projects or smaller project like renovating a unit, or both?
No, just Main Street. This would just apply to the Main Street development.
Okay.
So when we built Whittlesey Village, we didn't have tax credit financing. It was conventional state affordable housing financing, and we didn't need to ask for a home rule petition.
And on Whittlesey, we did modular, which is a different procurement scheme. There's a special law for modular, which we don't plan to use here.
And how does this relate to the requirements for percentage of woman-owned subcontractors and minority-owned subcontractors?
We'd have the same requirements as we would have if we didn't have the home rule petition. So we'd still be required to meet those percentages that are set by the state.
I understand.
What this home rule does is really make us like all other developers in the low-income housing tax credit program, instead of a public agency trying to do a project with low-income housing tax credits. It's kind of levels the field. It'll make it much easier to get an investor, to get the funding, and it will save substantially on the project. Some estimates are as much as 30% on the overall project costs.
Right, I completely understand that the management of the subcontractors is easier in this way. I completely get that. Members of the board, any questions or comments for Kelly or Jeff? Dean?
Yeah, I'd just like to say from my experience doing a number of projects for the town over my career, file sub bids just immensely complicate construction projects. It really shrinks the pool of general contractors that would even be interested in projects. So Mr. Sachs made the mention about, you could save 30%, and I don't think that's an exaggeration. It really, the file sub bid law I think it's probably unique for Massachusetts, and it is just an absolute nightmare to deal with. So if we want to have affordable housing get built and keep it at a reasonable cost, which I know that's a goal on the part of the select board, I really think we should support this home rule petition.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Jim?
As long as we have Jeffrey Sachs here, a question I would have is, what reason do any legislators give for not just fixing this generically? It sounds like if filed subbids are a bad thing everywhere, why not just a single legislative fix to get rid of them?
I can't tell you. I've literally been working on that legislation for 30 years. I'm a former board member at Citizens Housing and Planning Association. We have taken a number of runs at it. I don't want to get into the politics of it. It just hasn't been able to be enacted. I sent Kelly actually today a report from 1999 recommending, and at that time Charlie Baker was the Secretary of A&F, recommending the amendment to filed subbids laws.
Okay, so I'll look elsewhere for the political gossip. That's fine.
I've worked with Senator Eldridge on this issue for many years. You can ask him his view of it.
Maybe if every municipal entity in the Commonwealth has a home rule petition.
That's where we're going, actually, for the public housing, because the legislature recognizes the costs implicit in this. It's a very difficult issue.
Right. Questions or comments from other members of the board? Hemingway.
Thank you. This is pretty new to me. I didn't know much about the file subbid law, so that's something I will also be doing some reading on after this. But my question is, why specifically the project on Main Street, and why is this not an issue, or maybe it is an issue, but why are we not considering other developments?
So it really, because the tax credit funding makes it important for this, and I'll have Jeff explain the timing of it, but we would not be able to get home rule petitions across the board for every single construction project we had. That the legislature wouldn't go along with it. They understand with large, expensive housing projects that it's important to do, particularly when there are tax credits. Because, and I'll have Jeff explain the timing, but when you have tax credits, the people who are providing the tax credits have specific time commitments that you have to meet, which when you're doing public procurement, for some reason the public sector doesn't mind if things take a little longer, but investors do. It matters and how they get their money back. And I'm just talking about it in a rudimentary way. Jeff, could you just explain that a little better?
I think you hit it. That the question that Jim asked is the right one. Why hasn't this law been reformed? I'll leave that to you and your rep and senator. You can ask them about it. And the reason it's so important for our project is that the housing authority is going to be giving a completion guarantee to its investor. And if something is delayed, this is a resource that's going to come right out of the housing authority on this guarantee. And in fact, the investors understand that with the filed subbid law in Massachusetts, there's less control, so they're going to make higher reserve requirements. It just piles on. And I think the legislature has been convinced that for these types of projects, this is worthwhile doing. Kelly and I have been talking with your rep and senator for a couple of years about this, and they were not that favorably inclined initially.
But they're helping us now. So
yeah.
we talked to both Senator Eldridge and Representative Gaya, whose district this is in, and they're both interested in helping with this. With this particular project, not in reforming the whole filed subbid rule, but for this particular project, for this home rule petition.
There is legislation on the Hill to do this exemption for public housing projects like this. And even that is not getting traction. So a very narrow exception, and maybe in the years to come, that'll be enacted.
Wow. Any final questions or comments before I open it up to public questions? Okay, Justin, would you call on people who have their hands raised, please?
Absolutely. Call in user, you're on.
Hi, it's Tara from West Acton. I suspect that why it's not being promoted at the state because of the amount of money that the unions donated to campaigns. That said, I'm very much a supporter of unions, and I understand leveling the field, but have concerns about undermining efforts to have more projects that hire union labor. And I appreciate that many of the benefits would come to workers anyway, but I still have a question and then a comment, which depends on the answer. So my question is, does the budget account for prevailing wage?
Yes.
Great. So if this passes, and I hope it does, and I'm not sure how I feel about a statewide change because of the amount of money that unions do make on public housing, and I think that unions are so great. So, but if there is savings because you don't have to pay prevailing wage,
We still have to pay prevailing wage, Tara. Sorry to interrupt, but this does not exempt us from prevailing wage.
Oh, then I'm confused about what this is even for.
So
It's only for the.
It's mostly for the organization of the project and its subcontractors.
Okay, so if there's savings, I would like there to be more units available to lower incomes rather than giving more profit to investors. Thank you. That's my comment.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else who would like to speak. And so John, Kelly, and Jeff, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what we're voting on today is to put this in front of town meeting this year. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yes.
So basically, the board would support or not putting this on the warrant for town meeting.
Yes.
Any final? If there are no final questions or comments, I would take a motion to put the AHA's home rule petition relative, this petition relative to bidding requirements on our annual town meeting warrant.
So moved.
Dean moves and
Second.
Fran seconds. Any final discussion? Jim, would you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. Himogen Nagaredi.
Aye.
Dean Charter.
Aye.
Brian Arsenault.
Aye.
David Martin.
Aye.
Jim Snyder Grant also says aye. That's unanimous.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. You just made this project much more competitive.
Thank you, Kelly and Jeff.
It's great to see the dog park with this tonight too. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Good night. The next item 8 is for us to consider supporting extended producer responsibility legislation. And I think Rob Grogan is with us. John, is that correct? And I believe he has a short comment or maybe presentation.
Want me to promote him?
Yes, please, Justin. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, thanks for your time tonight. I do have a short presentation about extended producer.
Please go ahead.
Okay. I've been working in the recycling field for 30 years. Recently retired from Harvard University. And one of the things that's been stifling recycling and holding back the progress we might be making towards sustainable materials management is that the producers don't have to take any responsibility for the type of packaging they used or the safe recycling or disposal of it. So before the legislature right now, we have several bills that would support extended producer responsibility, which would not only help the environment, but reduce waste and shift the recycling and waste management costs from Massachusetts municipalities to the producers, retailers, and consumers who benefit from their use. This is kind of a diagram of the big concept of extended producer.
Mr. Grogan, we can't see your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. Share content. That's what I need to do. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
There you go.
All right.
And now we just see the white screen. You need to put up your
There we go.
diagram. There we go.
All right. So in extended producer responsibility, it's a continuous cycle of improvement where the mining, forestry, and manufacturing of packaging and all products eventually becomes the responsibility, shared responsibility of the producers, retailers, and consumers who benefit from them. The bills before the legislature right now, paint is the big one. It's the main cost of hazardous waste days. Acton budgets a little over $30,000 a year on this, and half of that expense is paint. This photo is not from my basement, but it could have been. And I think a large share of us have similar closets and shelves. What do you do with the paint? Well, the Mass DEP says, well, latex paint you can throw away, but you can recycle it. So 10 states and the District of Columbia have extended producer responsibility. The industry group, American Coatings Association, endorses this bill. Mattresses, 95% of mattresses in Massachusetts are discarded now and not recycled. Similar to paint, the American Sleep Products Association endorses this bill. Its cost to Acton residents exceeding $16,000. And it's something we shouldn't have to deal with. Packaging and printed paper. The state of Maine, state of Oregon recently approved laws in this area. Acton spent $170,000 in recycling last year. If we had extended producer responsibility, the producers would be paying for this, of course, along with the consumers, but the taxpayers wouldn't have to deal with it. Any expenses the town incurred would be defrayed by the manufacturers. Oh, and this new bill would include plastic bags and cartons and any new packaging type. The Better Bottle Bill, which just made it to the Ways and Means Committee this week. Deposits would be expanded to include water bottles, sports drinks, juices, wines, and nip bottles, and increase the redemption fees to 10 cents. Electronics, the fastest growing waste stream, the most toxic materials per pound of product, and they cause a lot of pollution in the third world countries they end up going to. Why now? Well, this legislative session ends this June, and the EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility, is a recommended measure. It's nature-based solution number 16 in the blueprint for climate action, and officially endorsed in this plan. The city of Newton, the town of Rockport, and other towns have passed resolutions in favor of these bills. So what I would like to ask the select board tonight is to sign and support a letter, which I will supply shortly, supporting this legislation. And here are the bills that are under consideration right now. A way to save the town of Acton over $200,000 and give tremendous incentive to manufacturers to design products that are more sustainable and more recyclable. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments from members of the board?
Hi, I have a question.
Jim, please go ahead.
I think this is a tremendous idea. It's a clear part of a vision of if you produce something, you're responsible for its ultimate disposal. You can't just put crap into the world and expect other people to clean it up. And right now, it's the municipalities that are the ones that are cleaning it up. So I'm totally in favor of this. The conceptual thing I'm sort of mulling in my mind is what's the right way to approve a letter that hasn't been written yet? And I suspect that the way to do that is to authorize the town manager and one of us to go off and write it or review it or something like that. So we don't have to bring it back to a whole other select board meeting.
So at the end here, Jim, I was going to ask that you all authorize me to sign a letter, but we can discuss that at the time we do a motion.
Great.
Dean, please.
Yeah, I also think this is a great idea. Particularly the better bottle bill is one that really resonates with me. It used to be you'd walk along the streets in Acton and you'd see lots of beer cans and Coke bottles. Now you don't. What you see is the iced tea bottles and the water bottles, and just the amount of trash and debris. I live just downstream from the high school, so you can imagine, and nips. So I think this is really a good idea, and I'm very much in support of this.
Other comments? Imogen or Fran? Imogen.
Nothing to question, just wanted to say that, like the others, I'm fully in support of this.
Fran, did you want to say anything?
I might as well just say I'm fully in support of this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought for a long time, things get made in a way that they cannot be recycled. I think this whole, sometimes paper and plastic are mixed in a way that they're not easily separated, so you can recycle the components or other, more complicated designs that prevent you from recycling the materials, and only if they were designed a little bit differently, it would make it much more easy to do. So I think this is a tremendous effort myself. I'll now open it up to comments from members of the public. So everybody knows this is an effort, or what the decision we'd be making today is whether the select board would support this legislation. We currently have 18 people, but I see nobody with their hands up. And so if there are no further comments from the board, Jim, if you want to make a motion of some sort?
Sure. If I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, the appropriate motion would be to authorize the chair and the town manager to draft and sign a letter in support of these various EPR bills.
On behalf of the board?
On behalf of the select board, yes.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Jim, would you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. If I could say one thing first, I remember working with Peter Barry on a similar EPR framework bill in support from the select board, and it's just so great to finally see this come full circle and actually, make it all the way through the board. It's very exciting. Imogen Nagaredi.
Aye.
Brian Arsenault.
Aye.
Dean Charter,
Aye.
David Martin,
Aye.
Jim Snyder Grant. Okay, that was the easy part. Now you guys have to write a letter.
Thank you, Mr. Grogan.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Manager, item 9. I think you've told the board to be making some changes in what you'll be presenting to the CPC, and please let us know here.
Sure, thank you. So tomorrow night, we're scheduled to go before the Community Preservation Committee to listen to the application that was submitted to completely rehabilitate the Asa Parlin House and turn it into a new space for indoor and outdoor programming for cultural and other events and activities. The request to the CPC was $1,063,000, and it would be combined with other resources of funding that we've already acquired to do the whole project. But over the last few months, and so I guess to give you some more background, so the design that we included in the CPC's application was based on work that we did with a public forum some point last year, and then other public meetings, and then extensive conversations with the Design Review Board and the Historic District Commission. And we developed 2 concepts. When we presented to the board within the last month or so, there wasn't a complete consensus on some of the design parameters. And so I think it makes sense to spend some more time on some stakeholder engagement and look at ways that we can make sure that this project meets all the needs that the select board had in mind when it established this as its first and most urgent goal for this fiscal year. And in that same spirit, rather than just waiting for that process to take place and then miss out on the opportunity to work with the CPC on potential funding, I thought the thing that we should do now is to focus on one of the core goals of this project, which is historic preservation. Of all the things that we talked about this building, one thing remained constant, and that was that we were going to rehabilitate the original structure from a few hundred years ago. And I think that every year that we don't do that, the cost to do so is more expensive. We've seen a lot of increases in costs over the last year, and we don't see that slowing down anytime soon, unfortunately. So what I'd propose to do is to proceed with a second phase of the stabilization that we started a few years ago. And if you remember, that building used to have a porch on the back and another piece of structure. But as part of the initial stabilization project, we took that part off and added some siding to it to keep it weather tight. But what we'd like to do now is, as a phased approach to the project that's been already initially proposed, is we'd like to scale it back and simply just focus on the stabilization efforts. The cost to that, we believe, will be $450,000 when you consider the design costs associated with it as well. And the work that we'd be proposing to do is work that we would be doing ultimately whenever we do this entire project, because it's work that has to happen. So the sooner that we get to it, the less costly the rest of the project will be. Some examples of the work that would be included in this phase of the stabilization would be repairing the stone foundation and other masonry that's going to be kept, installing new footings where they're missing or inadequate, making repairs to structural framing, repairs and restoration to the exterior walls of the historic structure, window repair and restoration, replacement of the roofing. The roofing system wasn't leaking a lot, but it definitely needs to be replaced. So that would be one thing that we could do now to help keep the building airtight, weathertight. And we would also be removing the 1970s addition, which is the one that you see facing Town Hall with the bay window. That is a really cool, I think, addition, but it's not something that has been supported to be kept by this board or by the Design Review Board. And by removing that, it reduces the scope of what we need to try to maintain and preserve and gives us an opportunity to then button up the historic building itself and do some of the site work to try to open the property up to the public a little bit more, and then really focus on what we want the addition to look like and how big it's going to be, exactly how it fits into the landscape design. We think we have a good plan, but we also think that it's worth spending a little more time to fine tune that plan before we ask for the full amount of money that is needed to accomplish it. So that's the high level summary. Is there thoughts or questions or concerns about that approach?
Members of the board, any questions or comments for John? Dean.
Yeah, speaking as chair of the CPC, and I can't commit what the CPC is going to decide over the next couple of months, but certainly a major concern that the CPC had was the amount of money that we have to deal with and the number of requests. So certainly scaling this project back makes a lot of sense, and I think it probably makes it more saleable, both to CPC and also eventually the town meeting. Also, I think the issue with the 70s addition, removing that, I think not only Design Review Board was recommending that, but even I know the Historic District Commission was recommending that. Didn't really fit into the overall scheme. So I think you're moving in the right direction. So I'm as a select board member, I'm supporting this.
Thank you. Other members? Fran?
I wanted to encourage the select board to approve the revision to the funding application for CPC. I think taking stabilization efforts in phases is really smart. I'd hate to see the building sit for another year, idly sitting, although these babies were built to sit for a long time. But I think that there might be other sources of funding in the future to do another part, phase 3, or so. I'm all for this, and I would move to approve this. That's it.
Jim or Imogen? Imogen.
Yeah, just wanted to echo, both what Fran and Dean had said. I think that doing this in stages does seem the smartest way to not exacerbate our problems in the future when, we have the data that we need and the community feedback that we need to make these decisions. So I am in support of it. My question was, I know that we had an ARPA funding, I think it was tentative, that we put it in the ARPA budget for allocating towards this, but just wanted to get an update on that just so that I'm clear. So right now we don't have ARPA money invested in this, right? And so we're currently seeking CPC funds.
No, thank you for bringing that up. No, the board did allocate $400,000 towards this effort as part of the ARPA allocations. It was the board's #1 priority this year, and I think that the allocation was reflective of that amount. And the way that I see that funding differently than this CPA funding is that this is what we're doing right now is historic preservation. What I think the community and the board and what I would like to do with the ARPA funding includes some historic preservation, but it also includes some new things that are going to be great. And so I think in my thinking of this, rather than just using the ARPA money right now for historic stabilization, I'd rather seek support from the Community Preservation Committee to do this historic preservation project and then utilize ARPA funding to do the next phase of the project, which would be the addition, which additions sometimes are eligible for CPA, but sometimes they're not. And it'd be helpful to have funding to do that work when it's needed, which I know the board had supported moving forward on that. And this is just a stepped approach to get there.
Got you. Thanks for the clarification.
So from my point of view, there are several good things in this plan. One is, I think, when you have a project, and this comes up over and over again in a lot of projects, where it's a big project and it takes a lot of money. Breaking it down makes it easier to do over time, right? It's really hard to bite off that one big chunk for $1 million or $1.5 million. It's very, very difficult, and it's disruptive to budgets and things like that. So I think that the phases here are very, very good. Second is, I'm concerned about the look on our central campus, and this completely satisfies that part of it. It doesn't add a facility to the campus yet, but what it does is it kind of removes the scar. I mean, the last thing that I want is to wait another 10 years for the building to collapse inward on itself, which you see from. I mean, I'm not sure the building is quite that close, but I would not want to see that, and it's certainly going to get worse over time, unless it's sealed up. And thirdly, I think it's important that we build a cultural center on this location. It's supported by quite a number of people in town, and in the current design, I think is close but not quite on. It needs just to be a little bit bigger and a little bit more flexible to serve as a cultural center. And it's hugely important to me that when we build that addition, that we get it right. And this gives us a little bit more time to deal with the questions there and to get it right. So I'm very much in favor for those three reasons. Anybody else want to make a comment before I open it up to public comment? Okay, there. I see 15 people on the meeting. I'll open it up to anybody wanting to make a comment on this. Justin, would you call on the people with their hands raised, please?
Absolutely. Call in user number 1.
Hi, it's Tara. Congratulations. Thank you, John Mangiarotti, for doing this work, and everybody that contributed to making this a more, digestible project. I see no opposition going into town meeting. Thank you.
Okay, I see no more hands, and I think what we want to do, and John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is we'd like to take a vote here asking the town manager to go forward with this revised plan when he presents to CPC this week. So I would take a motion to that effect. Please.
So moved.
Okay, Fran moves.
I'll second.
And Dean seconds. Great. Jim, would you call the roll, please?
Happily. Imogen Nagaretti.
Aye.
Fran Arsenault.
Aye.
Dean Charter.
Aye.
David Martin.
Aye.
I vote aye. So it's unanimous to support the revised plan.
Great, thank you. And John, thank you for bringing that forward. So now we'll move on to consent items, and we're in danger of being done before 9:30 here, unless you guys hold half of these and we discuss them individually. But I'll go through and read the consent items. Number 10, approve meeting minutes January 10th and 24th, 2022. Item 11, approve executive session minutes January 27th, 2022. Item 12, approve right of entry 364 and 386 Mass Ave by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. Item 13, approve commitment letter to participate in the Sudbury Assabet Concord Climate Resiliency Coalition. Item 14, committee appointment, Roland Borden, full member, Department of Public Works Facility Study Committee, Finance Committee representative, term to expire at completion of the task. Committee, item 15, committee appointment, Eric Larson, full member, Department of Public Works Facility Study Committee, Green Advisory Board Committee, Green Advisory Board representative, term to expire at completion of the task. Dean, I think you should have come up with a name that was shorter than Department of Public Works Facility Study Committee. So item 16, committee appointment, Robert Puffer, full member, Department of Public Works Facility Study Committee, term to expire at the completion of the task. Item 17, committee appointment, Fred Flaherty, full member, Department of Public Works Facility Study Committee, term to expire at completion of the task. Committee appointment, Ann Chang, full member, Department of Public Works Facility Study Committee, term to expire at the completion of the task. Item 19, facility committee appointment, Ken Anderson, full member, Department of Public Works Facility Study Committee, term to expire at completion of the task. Item 20, committee appointment, Partha Christian, full member, Green Advisory Board, term to expire June 30th, 2024. Item 21, accept gift Recreation Department for $100 from Joseph and Mary Will towards the Acton Dog Park and the 2022 Summer Concert Series. Item 22, accept gift Planning Division for $14,500 from Seal Harbor LLC towards the Sidewalk Fund from the Planning Board Decision 21-07. And item 23, accept gift Veteran Services for $1,000 from Orion Industries to be used at the discretion of the Veteran Service Officer to help assist veterans surviving spouses of veterans. So I would take a motion to approve items 10 through 23 inclusive.
I had a friendly amendment to recommend before we go too further. You described item 10 about meeting minutes to include our executive session minutes. Those aren't prepared yet. They're not in our packet. So these are just regular session minutes.
So that was item 11 was for the executive session minutes.
Oh.
And so you're asking me to remove item 11.
Let me double check that. Yes, I think I am because I have not. If it's that's for the executive session on the 27th.
Hold on, I can figure that out here in just 1 second.
Sorry, I guess I'm looking at an old version of something. Yeah, there's nothing about item 11 in the packet. There's no actual executive minutes from. Oh, that's right, because they would be in the.
So the item 10, the 27th part of that is for the wrapper around the executive session.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. And item 11 is the executive session itself, which is in the confidential part of the packet.
Right.
So are you okay with that? And if not, do you want to hold item 11?
Yeah, why don't we hold it for now, and I'll just like scrounge around a little bit, and maybe the town manager has some.
Okay, so I don't think that's a problem. So,
okay. Oh yeah,
I would take a motion to approve items 12 through 23 inclusive, plus item 10 only for January 10th. Okay.
So moved.
Okay, and is there a second?
Second.
Jim, do you need me to repeat that, or are you good with that?
If you could, since I've been.
Yeah, so the motion is to approve items 12 through 23 inclusive,
yeah,
plus item 10 for January 10th only.
Okay, I think the 24th is also fine, but we'll take that separately if you want.
Okay, I'm sorry. So then I will amend my motion to say items 12 through 23 plus 10. So all but 11.
Got it.
And Himanja, would you just second that again, please? If you agree?
Sure, I'll move it again.
Okay, and who's
Second,
second?
yeah.
And great. That's super. And Jim, would you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. Himanja Nagaredi.
Okay.
Fran Arsenault.
It takes us right up to 11. Am I saying aye?
Dean Charter.
Aye.
David Martin.
Aye.
And I also say aye.
Great. And unless anybody has anything else, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would like to review. I see the executive session minutes now. I'd like to have more time to review them. So
that's fine.
Right.
Good. We didn't approve them.
Yeah.
Okay, I would take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
So Fran moves and Dean seconds. Jim, would you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. And I should do this really slowly so it lasts until 11. Is that what I heard you say? Imogen Nagaretti.
Aye.
Fran Arsenal.
Aye.
Dean Charter.
Aye.
David Martin.
Aye.
Jim Snyder Grant says aye. We are adjourned.
Great. We'll see you in 3 weeks because of the President's Day holiday.
Okay, and then we go back to 7 p.m. Is that what happens?
No, we're going to do 7:30 in February.